Hey there. Yesterday I flew over to Melbourne for a Statamic takeover of PHP Melbourne, and you might remember a couple of weeks ago at PHP Adelaide I took a design and built that into a Statamic site in 40 minutes, and we did that again last night but in Statamic 6. So it's currently in alpha, but I thought given it's got some new features for developers and some new quality of life improvements for our authors, I thought it'd be worth going through it again. So let's just hit play on our timer. 40 minutes on the clock, let's do it. Here's our new interface. It looks different, but the ideas are the same. We've got new tech under the hood driving it, but the ideas of collections, navigation, taxonomies, globals, they are the same from Statamic 5. So if you're used to working in Statamic 5, you will feel comfortable. But what we're going to do today is jump across to Figma. We've got our site, we've got our menu, we've got some content, we've got this green feature, more content and some more parts there, as well as our footer. And I do like starting at the footer because it means I don't have to scroll so much. So let's do that. Jump across to PHP Storm. So if you're new to Statamic, this should feel very, start that again. If you're new to Statamic from Laravel, this should feel fairly familiar with, for you with its folder structure. We can jump into our resources folder, go to views and our layout, and this is going to be the main driver. We have this template content variable, and that's where the body of our page is actually going to be generated, but we'll get to that as we go. And we're going to be doing this in Antlers today. You can use Blade if you would prefer. In another talk, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but we will work with Antlers today. When we start playing in Livewire, you might want to go to Blade, but it is completely up to you. Anyway, Antlers for today. So let's just get going. We've got our footer element. Class is BG green 900, text white, and PY16. And let's put the word footer in. Okay, jump to our site. There we go, we've got our footer. But there's a couple of things we just need to remember from our design. We have our logo and our tagline, menu and copyright information, and it's centered. We've got this padding on the left and the right, so it's got a max width to it. So that width is going to be common throughout our whole site. You can see down here, this part of the logo matches the logo at the top too. So what we actually want to do is create a reusable partial, and we're going to call that a block. So let's just underscore block.antlers.html. So the reason I've gone for an underscore is that if we use a template or layout field type within Statamic itself, it will ignore anything that's prefixed with an underscore. So we wouldn't want our users to be able to pick some of these files, so hence we will just prefix that with the underscore. Now let's make it width full, MX auto, and max width, let's go breakpoint XL. Okay, and we're going to put a slot in as well. So if you're used to building with Blade components, or maybe even in the view world, using slots should feel fairly commonplace for you. So we can now play with those here too. Now in Statamic 5, everything would be in our double braces using the Antler syntax, but with Statamic 6, there is this new component syntax, and we can either prefix it with Statamic : and then go into our tag, or we can just use S, and we'll just do that to make it nice and easy. So S partial, it's going to call our partial tag, and we want to pull in the block. Now you'll notice that we've gotten rid of the underscore because Statamic will know exactly what we're looking for here, so that way it doesn't get a little bit too cumbersome to read. But if we jump over to our site, you can see we now have this padding on the left, and obviously it will be on the right, but we now need to put in our content. So a couple of things we've got to look at here. We have our logo and our tagline, menu and copyright, and they're spread apart. So let's build those out. Okay, we're going to have our logo, we're going to have our tagline, and we're going to have our menu, div copyright. Okay, cool. Now what we need to do is we need to use flex to take those apart. So if we go class equals flex, justify between, we can now pass a class to our partial, and we can use that simply by including that class variable within our class definition. And we jump back over to our site and we can see things are where they're meant to be. So let's just make that right-hand section be text right so that everything sits over on the right-hand side. That's looking better. Let's get our logo in. Cool, so in Statamic, let's jump over to assets, and we're going to upload some assets. So let's go for a couple of images and a couple of logos. Now, one of the big pieces of advice I can give is to make sure that you organize these from the ground up, because you as the developer is the starting point for asset organization, and you can then teach your content authors how to keep things organized. As your site grows, that will become more and more important. So I've just created a folder and I've just dragged 2 assets in. So it's so easy to play around with assets in Statamic 6. Cool. let's put our logo in place. Jumping back over, we go image tag, source. We know it's going to be our assets container, just our default, and we want the logo reversed. We'll give it a class of H10 and we'll be good, and we will do our alt attribute too. Let's go and check that out. Hey, we've got our logo ready to go. Right, let's get our tagline in place. Now, we're going to play around in Statamic and we're going to use our globals. Now, we can click globals on the left, click create global set, and I'm just going to call this settings. I think this is a useful thing for a lot of generic pieces of information, and this is for the content that's going to live in our footer, and we could also create things for the header. And by putting it in a global, it means that we don't need to edit it on each page, but we can still give our users the ability to actually change this information as they go. So let's call this one settings. We'll go and edit that blueprint, and let's call this first section footer. And we want to create a text field, and we'll call that tagline. And you'll see that the handle is automatically generated for us too. And when we've got a little bit more time, you can go and do this yourselves too. Under validation, we've got all of Laravel's validation rules. You can even create your own rules too. So you can make sure that fields are required, minimum, maximum lengths. If you're doing something with arrays, how many items you've got in your array, all of those sorts of validation things you can make use of. The other one we want is copyright. So let's just add that, save our blueprint. Now, we can click on globals, or we can hit Command K and we get this lovely panel coming up. Now we know it's called settings, so let's actually search for settings and we can see content global settings. Let's go into settings and we have our blueprint ready to go, our tagline and a copyright. So it all starts with a seed, and let's jump to my little cheat sheet and let's get our copyright statement over. Cool, easy. That's our first global created. Now what we want to do is we want to put our tagline and our copyright text in place. So jumping back over, for our tagline, because Statamic will inject these globals into our template for us. So it's called settings, that's our handle, and the field that we created is called tagline. So if we just put that in, jump back over, there we have our content. How easy is that? Let's go class, font bold, text small. What's that doing? Yeah, it's not too bad. Could probably even go text extra small. Why not? Yeah, let's do that. And we can do the same for our copyright. So again, settings is the handle for our settings global, and the field that we want is called copyright. So let's do class equals text XS, text white. Let's make it 30. There we go. Cool. Easy. Our global. That's now appearing on both spots. Now, our menu we will come back to. Because our menu exists at the top, let's go to the header now as well. So jumping back over, what's our header got? We have this lovely big hero image. We've got this white floating menu bar, logo, menu, and this get started button. Okay, so jumping back over, how are we going to approach this? Let's go back to Storm, put our header element in, and we'll just give it a BG green 500 and a height of 200, just so we can see what we're doing. That's where our header is going to live. Okay, cool. Now we need that image and we want our users to be able to change that image. So what we can do is that we can go Command K and go settings, and we can see our blueprint. Let's go to our blueprint for settings. We're going to create a new section. We're going to call that header. And we can even drag that up. So obviously it would make sense for the header to be at the top. And we're going to have an image field type, so assets, and we're going to call that hero. Now we want to make sure that we'll make it nice and easy and start in the hero folder, and we only want to be able to pick one image. Let's save that. And we'll also do an entries field type, and we're going to call this get started, and we'll make sure we can link to the pages collection. Let's make it a select box, and again, only one. Now there are so many different field types in Statamic, and that's a whole talk in itself. You can also go through and create your own field types too. So lots that you can do to really customize those interfaces that your users are going to interact with, as well as start to extend to do things very custom and unique for your site. But that's a whole other topic too. Anyway, we've got our hero, we've got our get started. Let's go Command K, settings, let's jump back over. Okay. Let's pick Secret Falls. That's going to be our hero image, and our get started page. Let's pick our get started page and go and save that. Cool, jump back over. Now what we want to do is we want to build our menu. Let's jump to Storm. Let's make a PT, let's go 12. Now we're going to reuse our block partial. So using our component syntax, let's call the partial tag, and we want our block to come back. And we're going to add some more classes to this one. We want BG white, rounded, XL, PX4, PY2. What else should we have? Let's go flex, justify between, and items center. Okay, so on one side we're going to have the logo. On the other side we're going to have the menu. Let's see what we've got. Logo, menu, white rounded box, beautiful stuff. And you'll see that it's nicely lined up with our footer down below. Cool. Let's add our logo. Now I actually want to make this a link. I like it when we can link to the homepage from that logo in the top left. So let's just do that. Image source equals assets logo. Let's do class equals height 10. And of course, alt attribute. Always add your alt attributes. Let's check it out. There we go. We've got our logo. Now we need our menu. So jumping back to our design, we have a couple of links and we also have this button. So two things we're going to play around with here. Jumping over to Statamic, we can go to navigation, create a new navigation. We're going to call this main. Let's create that. First of all, we want to configure it. So we can say we want to link to pages. And you can play around with these different features based on how you want your site nav to work. And for this one, I'm going to say max depth of 1. I don't want any drop-down menus. Let's click save. Jump back to our main, and we can now link to entries. So we want home, about, how it works, and contact for our menu. Let's pop those in. Let's click save changes and jump back over. Okay, so we want this to appear up in that top right-hand corner. So jumping back to PHP Storm, I like using tags. So let's elements. Let's use the nav element. Now using the nav tag, so s:nav, we want to call our main menu. And that's going to be able to loop through all of those items that we've got. So let's pop those in a list. Let's get ourselves organized. List item, and we want the href to be URL. So we're going to be getting a list of different entries, and each of those will have a title. Every entry will get a title, as well as a URL for a routable entry, which these ones will be. So we can just do title and URL. And there we go, home, about, how it works, contact, and down in that bottom left corner, it's a little hard to see, but you can see that the URLs are changing. Let's make these be flex. Ooh, what do we want to do? How about gap x4? And let's make our links actually look better. Class equals font bold, uppercase, transition colors, and hover, we want text green 500. What's that going to do? Cool, we can now hover and we get our highlight colors. We now have our menu. I actually think I want to make that small. I know it's just a small little thing, but it makes me a little happier. There we go. And I reckon we can even make that bigger. Beautiful. I'm happy with that. Cool. The one thing we're missing is that get started button. So if we jump back over to our global, remember how we picked this particular entry? We can now access that entry by accessing our global. So let's make that a list item within our main menu. And we want this to be, okay, well, two things we've got to do. First of all, if we do settings, we called it get started. That's now going to give us access to the entry. So we could get the URL, we can get the title. So we can do title. Let's just see what that's going to output. There we go, get started. We could change that to URL. There we go, /get started, beautiful. They're two things that we can play with, but we want to make this into a button. So let's create another partial. And this time we're going to start organizing it. Components. If you're playing or working with Livewire, I keep using the word playing, sorry. Anytime I say the word play, working, I don't know, it's fun, it's play. Anyway, components. If you're working in Livewire, working in Blade, components should be a fairly natural directory structure for you. So we're just going to create a new button here, button.antlers.html. We want our button to get a href variable, and we want to output, well, how about we output a slot? We can use slot again. Let's also make our button do a few things. Make them look pretty. Okay, BG green 500, inline block, uppercase, font bold, text, XS, PX4, PY2, rounded large. What have we got? Oh, we haven't done anything yet. How about we go back to our layout and use our button. So S, partial. Now, it's in the components folder, so we need to start with components.button. There we go. We want to use our slot, but we don't want the URL, we want the title. Let's check that out. Okay, so we need to make this be item center. Let's get everything lined up nicely, beautiful. Text small, did I make that too small? Oh, text excess, let's make that text small. There we go. And also we want that to be text white. While we're here, why not? Transition, colors and hover, BG green 600. Yeah, there we go. That's more like a button. We still need to pass that href variable. We haven't done that yet though. So what we can do is here we can go href equals settings, get started, URL. Okay, bottom left corner, we can see that's now linking to the get started page. Beautiful stuff. We now have this partial that we can play with for a button. So anytime we reuse these buttons, we can now use this partial. Makes it nice and easy to reuse. Now that menu existed down the bottom. So speaking of partials, let's get our menu and we're going to extract that out into a separate partial. Menu.antlers.html, paste that in. So S partial components.menu. And what we're going to do is pop that down the bottom too. Okay, menu at the top, menu at the bottom. Lovely. Let's give that a bit of spacing. Space Y2. Yeah, we got our new menu down the bottom. We got our menu at the top, but we can now change one thing in Statamic in the control panel and it will update in 2 places. We've got our button as a global. We change that once and it happens everywhere. Cool. Hopefully you're still with me. What do we got on the clock? 24 minutes. Okay, got to hustle. Image. Image is the next thing. So first of all, because I'm going to do some absolute positioning, let's get that sorted with position relative. Now, what we want to do is div class absolute inset 0. Let's just go BG Brown 500 and go and check it out. What have I missed? Every now and then, for whatever reason, npm decides to stop loading. Div class absolute inset 0. Oh, I've done it in the footer. That would be why it is not working. Okay, let's go back up to the header. Relative, and let's paste you in. Yeah, that looks better. Although we've lost our menu because we haven't done our Z indexing. So we want to make sure that our image sits at the back, so Z0, and we want to make sure our partial sits a little bit higher. So we'll just make that relative 2. Cool. So where the brown is where our image is going to go. Rightio, so let's just get rid of that brown. We're not going to need it. Now in our global, we had that hero image, so we can now use another tag, and this is our glide tag. And this is where we can actually pull in our image, and this is cool. So our source is going to be settings, hero. That's all we got to do. Now within this particular tag, we're given a whole heap of variables. We are given the image URL, the width, the alt attribute. So all of that information is pulled out from the asset within Statamic, and it's passed to us, so we can now use that. So we can go image source equals URL, went blank for a minute, width equals width, height equals height, yes, alt equals alt, that's a good one. Let's all close that off. Okay, now if we go and look at that, it's not going to be quite right. I'll give you a heads up. See, it's copying and falling out the bottom because it's just far too big. So we can just fix that by going class equals width full, height full, and object. Oh, I get confused. Cover contain, 50% chance of getting it right. There we go. I got it right. Cool. We now have our image nicely positioned. We've got our content where we're going to play around with next. Cool. But there's one thing I want to have a quick look at here with the image. Now, this is a beautiful high-res image. It's 5.87 meg, and your users will upload large images. And what we can do with Statamic is use the glide tag to help resize those down. So because the glide tag gives us so much control, if we had a bit more time, we could go through this. You can actually make a picture tag that has multiple uses of the glide tag so that each of them are going to output different breakpoints or different max widths or different widths of your image for different breakpoints. So that way, if you're on a mobile device, you might serve them an image that's only 400 pixels wide, whereas on a desktop, you might want it to be a lot larger. Given we're just looking at desktop for now, let's just say the width is going to be 2000 pixels. So what's that going to do? I reckon we need to make that a bit bigger. I can see that's fuzzy. Okay, that's maybe 3000. Let's make it. You can tell I'm a stickler for quality. Okay, there we go. Let's check out what that is. So Secret Falls JPEG, max width is now 3000 pixels, 1.68 meg. Cool, that's better. The other thing we can pass is format. And we could say make this a WebP image. So what have we got now? 1.55, cool, not bad, we're getting there. The other thing we can pass is quality. Let's make it 60. WebP you can tend to get fairly aggressive with. We're now down to 857K. So you can pass all of these images, but the image that's been uploaded is still that beautiful high-res image. So if you were to change your design later and you need to crop or manipulate these images in a different way, you've still got the original you can use. We just have this glide tag that allows us to do things differently too. Cool. So if you're dealing with responsive, you'll go through that in a lot more detail. But and also one thing just to remember, not every browser will support WebP. Most of the modern ones do, yes, but you know, I think we've all got someone out there, we know someone who is using an older device and they may still require JPEG. So that's where the picture tag is cool, because you can actually go through and, picture element, and create a range of WebP format and a range of JPEG format. So that way the browser can interpret and load the asset that it needs, that it will actually support. So check that out, that's really handy. But the glide tag is going to help us do that. Anyway, let's keep going with our site. Okay, we've got this content. We've got 20 minutes to get through this. So let's see how we go. We've got content. We've got this other green thing. And then we've got more content. And this one has stuff in it. So we'll get to that one last. Let's just start with the simple one. Basic content. Cool. Let's jump over. Okay, first of all, we want to go through to our field sets. One of the things I really like to do is create a common field set. And this is where I'm going to create configurations for fields that get reused a lot throughout our site. Now, Statamic comes with this bar editor. It's built on top of Prose and TipTap, rather. Pop. Let's try that again. Prose, Mirror, and TipTap. There we go. We're going to call this content, and we can go through and say, well, let's allow them to have a heading 1. I don't want them to pick an image. I'll come back to that. And I definitely don't want tables, because tables on the web is just wrong. I reckon that's it for now. We'll just keep it nice and simple. We will save that. Let's go back to our field set, and we're going to create now one called Page Builder. Okay, let's explain Page Builder. I'm going to have to take a minute to explain this. One way to think of your site design is to break it into horizontal slices, and I call each of these slices a block. So we have this white block at the top with our content. We have this green block with our feature text, and we then have this other white block down the bottom. That's going to be our content block as well. Each of these will become blocks within our page builder, and that way we can create the markup just for these little slices, but as you go through an author, you can then drag these blocks around. So this can give your content authors a lot of freedom with how they can actually go through and change their layout, change their site to suit what they want, even after the design has been built. They might need to add a new feature somewhere, and it needs to be a different color or something. You know, you can go through and build out so many features within the blueprints to give your content authors the ability to change the layout, but also still keep the design integrity intact. So that's the important part, design integrity. Anyway, text. Okay, cool. Back to it. We're going to create a replicator, and a replicator will give us an array of different blocks. So we're just going to call ours Page Builder, and our first set we are just going to call Content, and I like giving things icons. Let's go Text. What have we got? Let's do this one and confirm. And we've also got that green one. We're going to call that Feature. So let's just create a placeholder for that. How about we go, where's our exclamation? Let's use this one for our feature. Cool. There we go, we've created 2 blocks. Now, this is where we can link to a field. So we've created this content field, so let's link to that. What that's going to do is import that into, with a link. We can then make changes to that field if we need to, but if we don't, it will then just continue feeding off of that common field type. So if we make changes to that common field type, they will then filter through. If you make a change that overrides something in your default, then that change won't come through any further. But if you were to say change, one of these toggles, all the rest of the settings will stay the same, but just that one toggle will stay within that field. Does that all make sense? Hopefully it does. Okay, anyway, we've added our content. Let's apply that and save that. And I want to go to the home page. So Command K, let's go home. Here's our home page. Now, at the moment, we've just got this single markdown field, and that's not really going to work for us. So let's edit the blueprint. Okay, get rid of that, and we will link to a field set. So what's the difference between linking to a field and linking to a field set? If you link to a field, it will basically do a bit of an import. And as I mentioned before, you can override things. If you link to a field set, it will include all fields within that field set. So for our page builder, we've only got one, so we could actually do either. But if you had a more complex field set, maybe you've got a button configuration that gives the author the ability to choose color and size and appearance, like different icons even. You might have a whole heap of different fields configured, and you might create a field set called button. Linking to that field set will then pull all of those fields into your blueprint. So that way it's grouping everything together. There's a use case for both. You'll explore that more as you build things. So let's just link to a field set here. Notice when we do that, we can't edit it. It will just bring everything in. Okay, cool. Let's save our blueprint. Let's go back home. So Command K to get us there, and we can now add a block. Let's do content. That's the one we're playing with first. And beautiful. Let's get some content in place. Let's make this be a heading 1. Let's make this be bold. Let's go and look at our site. Okay, well, we've lost our content now. That's gone a bit weird. What we need to do is, back in PHP Storm, let's close some of these files. Okay, we're now going to go to our default file. So this is what's going to populate that template content variable within our layout file. And we're not going to use content anymore. That was what we had when we installed Statamic, but we now have this page builder variable, page builder. And as I mentioned, that's going to give us an array. Now within this array, we have this lovely magic variable called type, and that's going to tell us the type of each block. So this particular block is of type content. If we were to add a feature, we would then, let's just add one now, add that, and you can see we now get feature as well. So we'll come back to that as we go. Let's just turn that off for now. Okay, let's get our content output. Jumping back to PHP Storm. So what we can do is this type we can use to actually pull in partials dynamically. So first of all, let's create a new folder. We're going to call this Page Builder. I feel it's nice to organize your blocks in such a logical way. It will save you so much headspace when you come back to a project later. And if you follow the same conventions in all your projects, it makes it easier to switch between them. Anyway, it's called content. That was the type. We'll make it .antlers.html. And let's just go, this is my content block. Okay, jumping back here. So remember, we've got this magic variable called type. So s partial page builder dot, well, can we do that? We can. And unfortunately we can, but syntax highlighting looks a little bit weird here. So we can still also do the longer way of doing things. And I like this when we're doing something dynamic because it helps with syntax highlighting. So what we're saying is go to page builder dot whatever that type is, in this case content. So if we just go back to our site, this is my content block. Cool, hey? Okay, in our content block, first of all, how about we pull our block back? Okay, so let's go s partial block, and let's just do content, and we can see, let's close it off properly. We can see it's been brought in. Beautiful. Now, we've used Bard, and that is going to output HTML for us, and we want to style that with Prose. So what we're going to do, we're just going to do s partial components, and we're going to make a Prose one, so .prose. Cool, let's just do that for now. Go to components, create our prose.antlers.html. This is my Prose. Okay, there we go. We can see we're now pulling that in. Now, we don't want to see me try and type all of this out, so let's copy this. Go div, class. Okay, got our Prose in place, and we're going to output a variable called content, because we know that's what we're going to get for content. Look, there we go. We've got content in place. So let's jump back here and let's go class equals py16, give it a bit of space. Now, one thing I don't like here is the text is too long. I want to make that narrower. And if we go back to our design, you can see the left of this text is definitely much narrower than the wrapper that we've got here. So what we've got to do now is go back to our block partial. Okay, so we've got this class variable. Let's extract this out and make this a variable too. We're going to call this breakpoint. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to be good developers, and we're going to leave notes, and we're going to define defaults. Leaving notes makes it nice and easy to see what's going on and what variable you can play with as well. So we're going to create this breakpoint variable and default to Excel. We can also create our class variable and we'll default it to none. But what we've got to do is just make sure we prefix these with view. That way it's just keeping the scope of our variables in place. Okay, what does this mean? This means by default, if we jump back to our page, you can see everything is lined up, the widths are the same that we had. But for our content block, we can now pass breakpoint as a property. So let's go max width breakpoint. What do you reckon? Let's go MD maybe? How's that going to look? Yeah, there we go. So we still have our big wrapper. We also have our smaller wrapper, but it's also now all easily maintainable through this one block partial. And if we come back later, we can look at it and go, oh, well, the default breakpoint's going to be XL, and there's no class, but we can override those so we can see what this accepts. So that's just going to make your life a lot easier to get in this habit of ensuring that you're defining what properties you were expecting for each partial. Okay, 10 minutes. Well, got to go. Okay. Rightio, where were we? Content's done. Block, we'll close that for now. Right, next one, feature. Now, I just hid that. Let's make that visible again. And let's also go back to, let's go to our field set. Let's go to our page builder. So Command K, field sets, page builder. Let's open this up. And what's our feature got? We're going to have some heading text. We're going to have an action text, and we've got this big button. So let's go and create a new text field. Let's call that heading. Another one, we're going to call that action. Let's save that. And let's go one more. We're going to make this an entries field type, and we're going to call this links. Okay, I want to pick from pages. I want to select drop down, and let's say we can pick up to 3. Okay, apply, 3 fields, ready to go. Apply, save. Let's go back home. Cool, heading. What is our heading? Reconnect and grow. Okay, let's find your leaf today. Why not? Let's find it. Okay, anyway, let's add our first button, get started. Let's save that. Jumping over, we get an error because we haven't created that feature file yet. So let's jump back to Storm, and under Page Builder, let's go feature.antlers.html. Just on that note, so I know it seems like I made a mistake, but I actually didn't. I did that intentionally because those error messages are really useful. If something goes wrong, it will tell you why, and you know exactly what to fix. It told us that that feature block didn't exist. We've created it, and look, the errors disappeared. Anyway, cool. Div, class, BG green, because I've got not 8 minutes. We've got to hustle now. Wow. Okay. Let's go PY16. We're going to make this be text center. Cool. Nothing so far because we haven't got any content. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Okay, div. We've got a heading variable. We've got some action. And then we've also, we'll come back to links. We'll come back to links. Okay, cool. There we go. Cool. I think NPM's playing up. Let's restart you again. There we go. That's better. It's all centered, all positioned. Lovely. Let's make this be text green 500, font bold, text large, and this one we can make text gray 500, font bold, text, how about 4XL? What's that look like? Beautiful. Let's give it space, Y2, and our links. Okay. This is where we want to loop through. So we can say we can pick up to 3. And again, it's going to be an array, so we can just loop through these. Now we've got our button partial, so S partial button. And we can then pass through. So with our links, again, we're getting entries, so we know we're going to have this title. And we also know we're going to have this href equals URL. Okay, button not found. What have I done? Oh, components. So again, how good was that error message? It told me exactly what I needed to do. There we go. But you'll see that button's a bit small compared to what we've got here. That's a big button. This is a small button. So what we've got to do is make it bigger. What I would love to do is pass a size attribute. So let's jump over to our button, and we're going to start to make some notes. So size, default, we want it to be base, but that just is telling us what we can do. So let's create, first of all, let's just make this a little easier to work with. Okay, let's create a switch within Antlers. Okay, position everything where we want. 1, 2, 3, that'll do. Okay, so if size equals large, we're going to output one thing, and we also want to have our default. So let's just pull out all of our size properties, and we're going to make these be our default. And what we can do here is also output size. Now, view. Okay. Let's pop that there too. Okay, so what we are going to do is based on size, we're now going to do different size properties. So what we can do is make this one be, let's make it large. Let's make this be 6, make this be 3, and this XL. Let's jump back over and we now have a big button. But look, we also have our small button as well. So how easy was that to add now a size property to our button partial? That means that we can make things a lot more reusable, a lot easier to play with. Okay, 5 minutes, cool. I think we've got just enough time. Let's add another content block. Go to my little cheat sheet. Let's copy some content. Okay, bang, there we go. Design time. Okay, what's this? We've got this other piece of content. We've got this image. Now, even though we're in a block, these are called sets within Bard. And the reason that I use a combination of blocks and sets is that blocks are great for big horizontal sections, whereas sets then fit within the prose. And there's a balance to them. I've gone all blocks, I've gone all sets. My happy place is sometimes I use blocks, sometimes I use sets. They work together. So let's create this accordion and we'll also create this image set. Okay, so let's just make sure we save that. And we want to go to our common. Let's go to our Bard field. And we're going to create a new set here. Add set group. We'll do that. And our new set is going to be called accordion. Let's give it an icon. How about collapse? Okay. Within each one, we're going to have a replicator again, and we're going to call this items. And within each item, we want to have a heading. And we also want to create a new field for Bard, and we're going to call that content. And the reason why is I'm going to do quite a bit of customization. Yeah, we don't want, oh, they can link. We won't do those though. Now, the reason why I'm not linking to our common one is that that would create a recursion loop, and we want to avoid those. So we just want to keep it separate. Okay, apply. Wow, 4 minutes. I'm running out of time. We might go a little bit over here, but that's okay. Save, save. Cool, let's go home. And down here, now when we get to a new line, we get this little plus button and we can add our accordion and we can add our items in place. So let's copy some content over, copy you and paste you in there. Let's just move things around, paste, paste, paste. Okay, we've got one more to add. Next. Beautiful stuff. Okay, while we're here, let's just put some more content down the bottom. We're gonna need it. Okay, and let's save that. Oh, what just happened here? What happened? Have I lost it? Yeah, I have. Okay, cool. Let's just go through that again. This is the joys of working with alpha software. Oh, what have I just done? Oh my goodness, okay. We'll log that one, won't we? Okay, let's put these in. Remember, we got 3. Look, I'm gonna say that's bought me a minute, so I think I can afford to go a minute over. Is that fair? Yes, Marty, that's fair. Okay, that's what I thought too. So I'm happy you all agree with me on that. I really appreciate the support there. That's beautiful. So thank you. Cool. Let's pop all of this in place. This is what happens when you start talking to yourself too much. Anyway, let's save that. Okay, go back over to our site. Now our content's gone. Okay, what has happened here? If we use Bard as is, Statamic knows exactly what to do with it. It will just output the HTML. But as soon as we start adding sets, it gets stored in a different way, and Statamic doesn't know how our sets need to be output. So we need to be a little bit smart about this. And we can use that same technique we use for our page builder because we now have this content variable. And we're going to also have another type here. So if we look at this, jump back to our site, you can see the first one was text, whereas this is text, accordion, text. Remember, they're the sections that we have. So what we can say here is if the type is equal to text, we can do one thing, and then we're going to do an else statement as well. Okay, let's just move our Prose tag up here because we know that it's going to be text. So we pass the content variable and we're going to get this text variable. It's just how Statamic works. We get our first text, we get text, we still have a little placeholder, we'll get rid of that, and our bottom text too. Let's get rid of this. Okay, so what we want to do now is create another folder called sets, and this is where we're going to be able to create these little snippets that will appear within our Prose. So it was called accordion.antlers.html. Okay, div here is my accordion. Okay, let's jump back to content. S partial, and again, because we're using this type, let's go this way. So we're going to do sets.type. Close it off. There we go. Here's my accordion. We're good to go. Okay, within here. Okay, very, very quickly. Let's go div class equals my. Let's go 12. We're going to have items, and that's an array that we're going to loop through. Let's give these a space y of 6. Now, each one, we'll give it a wrapper. We're going to have a heading. And because we just have straight prose, straight barred text, we can actually just pinch this. So let's just copy that across. Div, close it, paste it, all the things. Okay, there we go, bang, bang, bang. Now, what I'd really like to do is just go max width. Let's make that be breakpoint MD, just to bring it in. Oh, do we need to make it small? Hey, there we go. That's better, MX Auto. Lovely. Let's just quickly do some styles. Class equals BG Brown 500, and we'll go 10 because brown's really weird to work with. Font bold, text brown 500, PX4, PY2, rounded, large. What's that doing? That's looking good. We can do that here too. Class equals PX4, PY2. Not bad. There we go. We've got our accordion block. Okay. Oh, I've run out of time. Wow. We got one more to do. Remember, I earned that minute. I'm going to keep that minute. Okay, we've got to add this image in. And remember I mentioned that before we had an image button that we could use in Bard, but I didn't like using it because we don't have control over it. So let's just go back to our common field and we'll go and edit that. Where are we? Add a new set. We're going to call this image and we're going to add 2 things for it. Number 1, it's an assets field type. Let's call it image. We can browse from anywhere, that's fine, but we only want 1 file. Now heads up, if you don't specify a number, you're going to get an array, even if you only pick 1. So if you only ever need 1, just specify and you'll just get the straight asset, not an array. Just a quick little time saver. One other thing we're going to do is add a toggle and we're going to do show alt. So we'll play around with that as well. Now I will just show you this because I haven't talked about it at all. You can also play with the widths and that will change the layout of it. We'll have a look at that as we go back to Command K, home, and jump down to the bottom. And we can add an image. I forgot to add an icon. That's all right, we'll get there. Let's get rid of that space. Lovely, we've got our image, that's 2/3. We've got our show alt that takes up 1 more third. So let's add our hero image. Let's go Hopetoun Falls. Let's just save that. Okay, what are we doing? Nothing, because we haven't created that image file. Let's jump back over to Storm, create our new set, image.antlers.html. We need a div tag. Now, okay, div. Image source equals, actually no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do our glide tag. Why not? Let's use our glide tag. We've got it. Source equals, what did we call it? We called it image, didn't we? So then in here we can do source equals, remember we have the URL. We have the width, the height we want. We want to add our alt attribute because of course all of our images need alt attributes. And just from a style point of view, let's go class equals overflow hidden and rounded large. Let's check that out. How are we looking? MY 16 or maybe 12. And I think NPM's playing up again. I know I'm going over. That's all right. You're watching this on demand. You can afford the time. It's all good. Okay, so we've got our image. We've got rounded corners. How cool is that? Again, using the glide tag, so we could resize that down. We know that's actually only going to be a small image, so we might even want to say size equals 1000, and that way it will render that image, not size, width. There we go. Width it now is only rendering that out as a 1000 wide image, which is great. We can still do our format too. Okay, we've also got that show alt toggle. First of all, let's go and add our alt attribute. So we've got this set alt button. Let's click that. Hopetoun Falls, Victoria. Okay, let's save that. Bang, our alt is done. But now we need to display it. So everything we've done with the glide tag, it's always been glide and then the image straight away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this because we can do whatever we want within this glide tag. We can have as much markup as we need, but we're in the context of that glide. So we still have this alt attribute. Yeah. What that means is that we can say if show alt and we have an alt attribute. Let's go div class text gray 500 mt2 and let's make it small. We can output our alt. Let's just end that if. Let's go and have a look and see what we got. Okay, we see nothing. Do you know why? Because we haven't ticked that. Let's turn that on. Check it out. we have our alt attribute. So now suddenly we've given our content authors the ability to decide what they want to show. Sometimes they may not want to actually show that caption, sometimes they will. But by putting that inside our glide tag, we don't need to reload the asset in order to move that somewhere else. But there we go. Okay, so what have we done? We've got our page, we've got our header, we've got our big hero image, things coming from globals, our navigation, we've got our page builder slicing our design into blocks, we've got text, we've got a feature, we've got big buttons, so reusing partials, width, remember that. Okay, sets, we've got our accordion set, we can make that interactive, we've got our image set. Cool, I reckon we're done. We went over, but you know what? I think that was fun. Statamic 6 is on its way, still in alpha, so feel free to download that and explore it yourself and see how you go. Any issues, please log them on GitHub so that the team are able to get on top of those. But I'm excited to see what that can do. That command palette, Command K, is going to save so much time when you're flicking around between different sections, a lot less clicks, and it will start to say, oh, you were just here, do you want to go back there? So definitely worth keeping an eye on. So thank you very much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've learned something, and now you can see how that works in Statamic 5 and 6. But stay tuned. We've got more coming as well. Again, this is from PHP Melbourne, where we're going to talk about how we can extend Statamic. So stay tuned for that one. And yeah, any feedback, please let me know. Reach out to me on socials as well. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.